Okay, dreamer, please.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today will be the first time I'm making a video for the 7 Nights 2 update and many more to come. So we're gonna check out the 16th of February update right now. We are gonna have quite a few things, but they're not too big. The really big update is gonna come in 2 weeks time, and I think many people are anticipating that update a lot because Evan Plus is probably gonna come. But before that, we do have Juju. Okay, I'm gonna talk about her skill set later on, but she is just a range hero for PvP with a new status effect called Mutation, and we'll explain that later on as well. So should you pull for this? Well, I don't think so, because I think your rubies will be better spent in the next banner, okay, where Evan Plus is here, and Nestra Shane probably as well. So you may want to hold back a little bit, okay. We're also gonna have the enchantment system. So if you have been watching Korean guides, you may be thinking how come they are able to clear certain bosses or certain content much more easier than you, even though you have the same heroes and probably the same gear. The thing is, the gear has been enchanted since a really long time ago, because the Koreans' enchantment system came in on their second update in the game, which is with the Miss Velvet update. And for us, it took about 3 months before this has come in, and we are already on chapter 12. So you can imagine that when that happened for them, they actually had a lot of leeway for them to build up their gear, because their chapter 12, 10, 11, 12 in fact only came in about 3 months after the game launch. So they had about 2 months to go through this whole equipment building process, and then proceeded to tackle those bosses and raid expansions eventually. So for us, we are kind of like 2 to 3 months behind them, but I think from now we are going to be quite on par, especially with the enchantment system coming in. You can get them from the shops apparently during the event period, so I don't know about what's going to happen after the event period, but from what I know, they do drop in Field Expedition, these scrolls. Okay, I'm not too sure if they're going to add it immediately into our server, whereby you can get the scrolls from Field Expedition, because it is not stated here. It will be kind of a bummer if they don't add it in immediately and only allow us to get it from the shop or to get it from the cash package, which is very low. Okay, so I hope they do add it in the Field Expedition, even though it's not mentioned, because otherwise few free-to-play players will have a very hard time to catch up, because all the other players are going to probably get the packages and build up all their gear so well that arena is going to be even harder to climb. Okay, so that's just one thing to take note. Arena will become much harder to climb. So how the enchantment system works is that you will get a random substat every time you enchant. These substats come in a set of 2 to 3 if I'm not wrong. So every time you enchant, all 3 will change. It doesn't mean that one will change. All 3 or 2 or 3 will change together. You do have the option of whether to keep or reject the new set of substats. So don't worry about trying to reroll, because you won't lose your old substats immediately. You can still have a choice of whether to keep or not. Okay, so then you have a chance of getting maybe 2 out of 3 substats being very good and 1 not so ideal. So you may want to keep that over whatever you have. Okay. We also have Celestial Tower expansions. I'll try to make guides on this. Not too sure how difficult they are, but based on what we had before, I think it could be quite annoying. We're gonna get Golem and Bane. Not too sure which golems these are, because there are many golems in the game. Okay, there's Ice Golem, there's the Sand one, yeah, and they all have different kind of status effects, so I'm not too sure whether we need to keep changing heroes for this. We do have Bane. I think Bane will have his good old immortality effect, so I think bringing a buff remover is going to be very helpful in these 5 floors. Of course, I need to go check it out first, okay? We do have Divinity expansions as well. So for Divinity expansions, there's a lot to focus on, to be honest. Okay, you may just think this is just a way to increase the power of your team and your account CP, but I think it's more than that. So firstly, you want to focus down on the ones that give you the greatest advantage in PvP, which is probably going to be the shock one, the stun one, the death one, and the freeze, and also the shackles and knockbacks, I feel. Okay, these 6 are the more important ones right now because they're more relevant to the current meta. So if you really want to upgrade pick cells. So if you really want to pick some to upgrade first, okay, because maybe you do not have enough grey runes for some reason, try to go for those first. Okay, think along the lines of what is happening in the PvP meta and aim for those. Okay, then you can subsequently branch out to the rest. Okay, but another perspective of things is that because many players are also going to do the same thing, if your team is very reliant on one certain kind of status effect, then that won't be very good for you. For example, if you are running a team like me, with Fodina Eileen and Len, which is very heavily reliant on shock, and the enemy has built out his shock resistance to a very high level, then you are going to be at a disadvantage. Okay, so at this point, having more status effects in your team is definitely going to benefit you, even though it may not, gel together in terms of something like how the Eileen and Len works. But I think it's completely fine because there's no rule that says that you need to use a certain kind of status effect anyway. So having more status effects in your team is definitely going to help you a lot more because you can rely on one hero or another. Okay, so yeah, that's just another perspective for you to think about. We have Guild War as well, and then we have one of the most important events in the game so far, which is the 100-day celebration, giving you a free Legendary Plus hero and Legendary Plus earring. Okay, so for the earring, if you do not have your Revive or Immortal yet, please get them. Okay, they are so game breaking that without them you cannot climb too far in your PvP. Okay, so please get them. For the legendary hero, I think there's probably gonna be just 5. Okay, the 5th being Rudy. Anything after Rudy, which is Chris, I don't think they'll be added in. So don't get your hopes too high. I'm just spelling it out here. Rudy, because I feel that he's been advertised on the Japanese image and the Thai image, so I think he's definitely gonna be in the selector. If he's not, then I think it's a little lame for putting his image on the marketing materials. But Rudy himself is a really good pick because he's good in both PvE and PvP. Okay, even in future, you're going to use him for quite a number of PvE content. He can be your main tanker for all the scenarios moving forward. For PvP wise, he is really good in the tank builds. In future, when Javes comes out, you can use him, with Jave, okay, for double tank, and Alice and I don't know, Shay or someone else, okay, for a really strong tank comp. So that's one thing. And he also doubles up as a much better variant suppressor compared to what we have, compared to the Blue Rudy, okay? So yeah, that's just one consideration. The other consideration is Skillset, because she is a very long lasting PvE damage dealer, even up to now in Korea server, okay? She will be used heavily in future as well in Guild Raid, okay, because in Guild Raid you do need a variety of PvE dealers. So don't just think that, since you have cleared your raids all the way to T15, you don't really need anything else. But Skillset is still really good in many situations, such as even your field expedition green maps, okay, greater maps, and even in future boss content, scenario boss content. I think Skillset is still the best nuker in the entire game thus far. Alongside other PvE support heroes, of course. And then we have the other 3, okay, Shane Plus, Velda, and Ming. Velda and Ming are very strong PvP contenders, okay, that can last pretty long in the meta. I'm not too sure how they will fare moving forward because our banners are moving so quickly. Okay, that's just something you need to keep in mind, because in Korea server, it was a good 6 months before Ace came out and just completely changed the whole meta. I think Velda can survive longer than Ming. I'm not sure, because Velda is after all a universal hero and there are many universal heroes coming out in time to come. So the universal comp is definitely here to stay. But for Ming, I'm not too sure where she will stand, because DPS heroes could be, very quickly replaced due to their more frail nature. So yeah, this is just something you want to keep in mind. I cannot be too sure about how the meta is going to swing because of all the schedule changes that Global has done and the time frame that each hero has. So just keep in mind. But ultimately, PvP heroes are always going to change. They're definitely not going to last for many months in the meta. Otherwise the game will be too stale and they won't make anything out of the new heroes, right? So yeah, this is just something you want to keep in mind. And finally, for Shane Plus, I think the problem with her is that, again, she is a very frail hero. Many people are just using her to suicide in their matches to act as a bait, right? So that's just one thing. The next thing is in PvP wise, the next thing is PvE wise, she doesn't live up to the standard of the other PvE damage dealers. I mean, she's really good, don't get me wrong. But in terms of Skillset, obviously, if you really want a PvE dealer, Skillset is much better than Shane. So I don't see a reason why you will pick Shane over Skillset unless you do need a melee, damage dealer. So that's one thing. Otherwise, she's really going to be relegated to just a Dunfrost suppressor, because eventually, even in guild raid, she is not one of the more preferred damage dealers somehow. Okay, yeah, so that's just something you need to keep in mind. And of course, we do have Skillset raid up with Miss Velvet alongside Juju. So I think these are just baits, okay, because as we know, as I've been mentioning, Evan Plus is coming. And I think you should really be saving for him instead. He is a really good hero, used in many content, used in your PvP, and a very stable damage dealer in PvE as well. And I think with him, you won't go wrong. You won't go wrong with picking him up. Okay, so I think your rubies are better saved there, especially your moonstones as well. So from this point on, if you haven't been getting enough moonstones and rubies, start getting them, start hoarding them, because we're gonna get a very big update when he drops. So now we're gonna check out Juju. Juju is, like I said, a ranged hero, and she is meant for PvP. Okay, for her ultimate, she deals a lot of a big AoE damage and has a 40% chance to mutate everyone in that area. Mutation again incapacitates the hero, disables them, and also decreases their defense by 20% for 8 seconds. I think 8 seconds is actually a pretty long time given the current context of our PvP. Okay, and it could be game changing. Honestly, it could be match changing. And if you use this with Yuri, I think her coming out after Yuri is actually quite interesting, because we never had that in Korea server. In Korea server, in Korea server, Juju and Claire were used more before Yuri came out. Yuri came out much later after Juju. But now that you have Juju and Yuri, I think they can form a very deadly, CC comp, because both of their CCs are very rare. So probably they won't be countered immediately, unlike people who are building their shock resistance and your stun resistance and all that kind of thing. But for them, they have very unique status effects that make them, if you run a double range comp, it could be pretty deadly, I would say, because you not only disable them, you also charm them as well. I'm not too sure if those two work hand in hand, but I remember there was a time when Yuri was used, I think Juju was also used beside her. And Juju also has buff removal on her skill, so you're not actually losing out in any way. On top of swapping out someone like Claire. Of course, Claire is also really good. You can even, I don't think you want to run a triple range comp, but yeah, you can actually do that. And for her passive, she simply just becomes immune to damage when she is disabled. Okay, so yeah, she lives a little longer. So pretty interesting. I mean, if you do have her for some reason, you can try her out with Yuri. I think both of them make a pretty unique combination of things. So yeah, that's all I have to say for this update. Do let me know your thoughts on Juju and what are you most excited for in this update. Okay, and of course, big shout out to my channel members: Christopher, Jeremy, Gonzalo, Fahas, Tom, Reggie, Yamaki, and Bilal for their support. Stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much, and see you!